This presentation brought to you by these generous sponsors: Sea Lake Yacht Sales, Total Care Custom Power and Wheelchairs, Alan and Blake Helfman at River Oaks Chrysler Jeep Dodge and Ram and Helfman Maserati, and in memory of Lakewood member Joe Shirley. There's something about the open water that beckons us. The sound of waves lapping at the shore, the reflection of light on its surface. For some, it's a form of relaxation. For others, it's adventure. Those who venture into the bay, the Gulf, and some into oceans. And those people share a bond. And that's the story behind Lakewood Yacht Club.
Well, I think it's an amazing story. It's as a private club, starting the way they did with just a handful of founders and members, and underwent, the tumultuous 60s and early 70s with all the financial turmoil, been able to survive because a lot of clubs didn't.
Welcome to Port A. Don't fall over.
In the early 1950s, there were two yacht clubs on Galveston Bay, the Texas Corinthian and the Houston Yacht Club. Each catered to sailboats. Powerboats were coming into their own at the time.
And the powerboaters didn't particularly like the sailboaters, and sailboaters didn't particularly like the powerboaters. So as a result of that, there was a group of gentlemen who came over and found this piece of property and developed it into Lakewood Yacht Club, and had a big following of people.
Among those gentlemen, the late Walter Hall, who was a driving force, along with a handful of other founding members in the creation of Lakewood. And they wanted more than just a marina.
It is my privilege to welcome you on behalf of the Board of Directors and members of Lakewood Yacht Club to our 40th anniversary celebration.
Years later, Mr. Hall recalled the best place to eat in the early 50s was a Mexican restaurant.
So, to have a nice place to eat without going to Galveston, why, people recognized this would be it. So we got from the members we knew we'd have to have through monthly dues and boat set rentals to increase the loan. Well, finally the club's trouble was, and I want you to know this, the club's trouble from the very beginning, it's not that way now, but it was, those members liked to drink champagne and pay for beer. That's right.
Chef, we appreciate you being with us, Joseph.
Thank you very much.
The food here is terrific. We can vouch for that ourselves. And just a couple of ideas for the next time you're down in Seabrook, dining in this area. Good seafood in this part of our general area. Joseph, thank you. Appreciate you being with us.
On April 24th, 1955, Lakewood Yacht Club opened, even as the finishing touches on the clubhouse were still underway. As much as the boating, it was a social environment for members, and membership grew. Thanks to Walter Hall and his financial savvy, Lakewood found its way to calmer waters.
Many of the members here put up their own money to keep the club going, and it kept growing.
It was well established in 1964 when the Clear Lake area was put on the map as the home of NASA's Manned Spacecraft Center. The moon race brought in astronauts for training, and because there wasn't much available housing, Lakewood offered its cabanas to NASA. The first astronauts lived in them at Lakewood for a time, and for a kid at the time, it was amazing.
Coming to Lakewood was just phenomenal. The big boats. Plus, at the time, a lot of the astronauts were honorary members at Lakewood. And I remember one time coming to Sunday brunch, and after Sunday brunch, an astronaut by the name of Russo came down to my dad's boat and spent the afternoon after Sunday brunch just telling us about space travel and preparation as an astronaut. It was just phenomenal, fantastic experience.
A dream for a young boy, a lifelong memory for a member. When astronaut Alan Bean asked to see the boat George Pappas was building in his garage.
We ended up calling the name of the boat Moondust, because how many boats do you ever know that a person has been on that's also walked on the moon? I only know of one.
Celebrities found their way to the Seabrook shore of the club. John Wayne enjoyed the bar as a guest of member Red Adair when the Duke was shooting the Hellfighters in nearby Baytown. But Red Adair was a celebrity in his own right.
Red Adair was a member here, and he brought his crew in here sometime, and Katie barred the door. Red knew how to drink a shot or two. So yeah. So he loved to have fun.
In his 44 years working at Lakewood, 40 as general manager, Terry Chapman has plenty of stories to tell, but he's also overseen the way the club has expanded and evolved. In the late 70s, a neighboring apartment complex with 12 units was purchased and converted to condos for members who wanted to live on campus. 34 townhomes were built, along with 51 floating slips for sailboats, and Lakewood was no longer a powerboaters only yacht club.
So it was a club for everybody wherever we met their needs. We had some that liked tennis. We liked some that liked fishing. We liked some who loved the restaurant.
The 80s brought the addition of a 3,500 square foot ballroom, which holds memories for so many members.
Wedding receptions and parties are held year-round in Lakewood's ballroom. With our own catering staff and menu, this is an ideal waterfront setting for any special occasion.
I had my wedding reception here 21 years ago in the ballroom right there. In that same ballroom, we've celebrated many different things over the years. I mean, of course, Commodore's Ball and our annual functions, things like that, but celebration of life for people that we've lost. So a lot of things have happened there in the ballroom.
Including events that featured the legendary defense attorney Racehorse Haynes. Patty Kane remembers it well.
The one that stands out in my mind that he talked about his lecture that night was how to murder your husband and get away with it. And of course, all the ladies were just in rapture of hearing all this. And he's so entertaining. I mean, he's an actor. When he gets up at that podium, because he's very quiet when he's here at the club, very low key, but he gets up to the podium and it's like the lights go on and the action starts. He's so entertaining.
Did people take notes on the lecture?
I'm not sure. I don't think so. But maybe somebody did.
Lakewood Yacht Club hosts several major regattas every year, which are open for all racers in the area and throughout the country. The racing season begins with the Winter Regatta in March, which usually experiences rather unpredictable weather conditions on Galveston Bay. Our major regatta in the spring is popularly known as the Shoe Race, which Lakewood has hosted for over 17 years. Keep in mind that a regatta is a series of sailboat races, so we try to hold 3 throughout the weekend.
And there are the regattas, several a year, including national races and those unique to Lakewood, like the Shoe Regatta and another tradition, the Harvest Moon Regatta. The seed was planted with a debate at the club bar between Ed Bailey and sailmaker John Cameron.
So we said, well, if we had a 2 or 3 or 4-legged boat race offshore, who could win that thing? And we both disagreed, obviously. We said, well, let's just start a race that we can settle this thing. John said, I know a fellow named John Broderick who's on the flag here in Lakewood. Let me talk to John, see if he can take it to the board at Lakewood and see if they'll sponsor the race. He did, and he came back and said, well, John said they were all tied up with the Sperry Cup race, and they didn't have the budget to do it. They'd like to think about it, but they didn't have the budget. So the first race was held in 1987. So we agreed that was a good idea. Plus, we felt also it was that a lot of people want to go offshore, but this was before GPS, and people just were afraid to do it.
So I had to drop back off. It cost us about a minute and a half. We're doing real well. We started out a little bit off the line at the start, and but we've been passing a lot of boats. We've had very few boats pass us, and the ones that have are much faster boats. They're race boats. So we've got 14 knots of wind, and we're doing 7.5 knots of speed, which is great.
But around 3:30 in the morning, a squall caused some serious problems for the Pamela Jean.
We got into a squall. We were trying to bring the boat up to adjust the jib, and when it happened, the boat went through the wind, and we did a complete 360. And that's very difficult on equipment and very difficult on people.
Channel 13, KTRK-TV, Houston.
The high seas of the Gulf of Mexico are carrying hundreds of sailors this evening taking part in the Harvest Moon Regatta. At noon today, nearly 200 yachts set sail from the flagship hotel pier in Galveston. As you can see from our Sky I-13, those yachts added plenty of color to the Gulf waters. This is the largest offshore regatta sailed in U.S. waters. The beautiful boats and their sailors will end the 153-mile race at the Port Aransas jetties.
The overnight regatta down the coast to Port Isabel began small that year, 14 boats in all. It's now among the largest sailboat races on the Gulf. And then there are the legendary racers like Don Genetempo. As a teenager, he asked his father to give him a sailboat rather than a car. His study is now lined with trophies won over time, many of them from international races.
Our big series was called the Admiral's Cup, and it was very difficult to win. It required you to have a team of 3 boats, and they were big boats. And each country would send 3 of their best boats, and usually it meant designing new boats and putting people aboard the boats who were really super experts. The United States hadn't won that trophy in 40 years. We finally won it in 1997.
Then there's Tom Richards, who also has a large collection of racing trophies. He frequently served as a protest chairman.
They raced in national regattas. We've had a number of our people on the America's Cup boats. In the America's Cup race, we had 2 people involved in that.
The passion for boating, whether powerboats or sailboats, is why the club was founded. That connection bonds members, especially when hurricanes hit. Some big ones have: Carla, Alicia, and Ike.
My boat was in the shed, And one of our members called me, and he was on his cell phone. He said, "I'm standing here, I'm up to my neck in water, but I can see your boat. It's still here, it's still tied up, so you're okay." And they'd go along and try and find others who had similar issues. And there were people during the storm who would come and try and adjust the lines as possible so that the property wouldn't be damaged, but neither would your boat or the boat next to you. So it's a community that really looks out after each other.
In 1996, a new tradition was born that draws thousands of people to Lakewood in the spring. Keels and Wheels. Founder Bob Fuller was inspired by the Pebble Beach Concourse, but his vision was bigger than that.
This unique and glamorous event is the brainchild of past Commodore Bob Fuller. Lakewood has the only concourse in the country that features both classic cars and wooden boats at the same show.
My idea was, what if you took the kind of cars that you saw at Pebble Beach and put them together with the kind of boats that you saw at the Lake Tahoe Classic Boat Show? And there was nowhere else in the country that was happening, and you had to have a facility like ours with beautiful grounds, plus a harbor for the boats. And so that's kind of how it all started.
It features the rarest of vintage cars parked on the stunning grounds and luxury boats in the harbor. Over the years, Keels and Wheels has generated nearly $2 million to charities, as well as a venue to showcase the club and the many members and volunteers who make up this special community event.
We put on the largest combined classic car and boat show in the United States.
$45 prize. Last chance, everybody. Go! $45.
It's a place for serious boaters, families, and the Lakewood Ladies Association. For decades, they've introduced a lot of women to sailing and boating.
Back in the 80s, we started a sailing camp. The Ladies Association did. And it was a mixture of education for women sailing, many of which had never sailed.
Members have a deciding voice in the club's operations. Marcy Friday is its former marketing director and sees what it has become.
The membership really becomes your life. Your life is centered around Lakewood Yacht Club and things that you do and the friends that you make.
Enough to see members who've moved out of state to return to home port.
We came back here because you just can't make old friends. And so all of our old friends were here, and I'm so glad we did.
It's a tight community, and typically when you make your friendships, they're for life.
There are generations of Lakewood members, from grandparents to grandchildren. Mattia DeErico was brought to the club by his grandfather as a child and was introduced to sailing. In a few years, he was in the Olympic trials. He didn't make the teams, but it helped make him the person he is today. He's now a father of 6, the newest generation at Lakewood, where kids can learn how to sail, play tennis, and make new friends. The club has evolved into one of the top yacht clubs in the country and is known internationally. But it's the bonds formed here that make it relevant for each generation, even for those born in the digital age. We're still drawn to the water, to adventure, and to friendships.
It's more than just the boats. Yes, I think the water is what we all have in common. You know, we have sailors and power boaters, all different people, but it's a way of life is what it really is.
I am the man! I'm the man in charge of the party! We gonna party!
I think sailing in Lakewood is probably my favorite memory of my life.
When you're out in the bay or out in the ocean or out in the lake, you're the captain of your own vessel. You get to go where you want to, how you want to, as fast as you want to. It's a sense of freedom. It's a sense of liberty. It really shaped my life.
I'm sure you'll hear it a lot, but people are what make this club.
20 or 30 years of being here, and it's just a special place.
And it's a great place to raise a family.
My kids grew up here.
I really enjoy it. God, if we didn't have Lakewood Yacht Club, we wouldn't have anything in our lives other than a bunch of doctors we've got to see every day.
It's a shame that not more people can do this because it is a fantastic experience and it makes you grow personally and mentally.
The Yacht Club, the people at the Yacht Club, they have a lot of heart, and they want to see the next generation be successful and share the same passion as they did. And so I was guided and protected by many people in the sailing community. And to have the opportunity to give back is just heartwarming and is priceless. I wish I could share it with everybody in the world.
This presentation brought to you by these generous sponsors: Sea Lake Yacht Sales, Total Care Custom Power and Wheelchairs, Alan and Blake Helfman at River Oaks Chrysler Jeep Dodge and Ram and Helfman Maserati, and in memory of Lakewood member Joe Shirley.